Listen quietly and consider this. Many people spend years trying to be seen, trying to be liked, trying to win the approval of others. They adjust their words, change their faces, and carry the heavy burden of pretending. Yet even after all this effort, they feel unseen. The more they chase attention, the further it moves away, like a shadow at sunset. But there is a simple way, an ancient way, that takes only a few moments to practice, and yet it carries the power to change every encounter in your life. When you meet someone, do not rush to speak. Do not rush to impress. For just 30 seconds, give them your full presence. Look at them as if they are the only person in the world at that moment. Listen not to reply, but to understand. Let your mind become still, like a calm lake that reflects clearly whatever stands before it. In that stillness, the other person feels something rare: space, respect, and acceptance. Most people are never truly heard. Their words are interrupted, their feelings dismissed, their presence overlooked. So when you offer genuine attention, it becomes like water to someone who has been thirsty for a long time. Do not think of what you will gain. Do not measure the moment. Simply be there fully and honestly. In these 30 seconds, soften your face. Let your eyes be kind. Allow your breath to slow, and within yourself silently wish them well. No need for grand gestures. A quiet intention is enough. People may not know why they feel comfortable around you, but they will feel it deeply. This is the ancient trick, not to win others by force, but to meet them without resistance. When you stop trying to take from the moment and instead give your awareness freely, something shifts. Walls begin to lower. Hearts begin to open. Trust begins to grow. And you will notice something else. The need to be liked starts to fade. Because when you are present, you are already enough. You are no longer seeking approval, you are offering connection. This is why it works. People are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to sincerity. They are not moved by clever words alone, but by the feeling that they matter. So the next time you meet someone, remember this: pause, breathe, and be present. Give them those 30 seconds of undivided attention. You may forget what was said. They may forget the details of the conversation. But they will remember how they felt in your presence. And in that feeling, you will have already won more than approval. You will have created a moment of true human connection. That is the quiet power of this simple practice. True connection comes from presence, not impressing others. People often try to win approval through words or behavior. But real influence comes from being fully present. Most people believe that to get accepted, they must become something more than they are. They think they must speak better, look better, or act in a certain way that earns approval. So they enter every meeting carrying an invisible weight, the pressure to impress. In doing so, they are no longer truly present with the other person. Their attention is split. One part is listening, but another part is calculating. What should I say next? How do I look? Am I being liked? In this state, connection becomes weak because it is built on effort rather than truth. But real human connection does not grow from performance. It grows from presence. When you are fully present, something subtle but powerful happens. The other person begins to feel that they are being seen, not judged, heard, not evaluated, accepted, not measured. This feeling is rare in a world where most people are lost in their own thoughts even while speaking to others. Presence means you are not trying to win anything in that moment. You are not trying to prove your intelligence, your success, or your worth. You are simply there, aware, open, and steady. When you meet someone with this kind of awareness, even silence becomes meaningful. A pause does not feel awkward. A glance does not feel empty. Everything becomes more real. The mind, when it is free from the need to impress, becomes naturally calm. And in that calmness, you begin to notice small details that were previously missed: the tone of a voice, the subtle emotion behind words, the unspoken feelings hidden between sentences. These are the things that truly build understanding between people. Not perfect speech, but deep attention. When you stop trying to become something in front of others, you start allowing yourself to simply be. And in that being, there is authenticity. People may not consciously understand why they feel comfortable around you, but I sense that you are not pretending. You are not competing. You are not resisting their presence. This creates trust without effort. Ironically, the more you try to impress, the more distance you create. But when you release that need, closeness appears naturally. It is like water finding its own level. You do not force it, you simply remove what blocks it. This is why presence is more powerful than performance. It does not demand energy to maintain. It does not require constant adjustment. It is simply a return to what is already here, the ability to be fully aware in the moment you are living. When you practice this in even small interactions, you begin to notice a change. Conversations feel lighter. People respond more openly. There is less misunderstanding, less tension, and more ease. Not because you have changed your personality, but because you have removed the barrier of constant self-concern. In this way, presence becomes a quiet form of wisdom. It teaches that you do not need to chase connection. You only need to stop leaving it. Give full attention for the first 30 seconds of meeting someone in the beginning of any interaction. Focus completely on the other person without distraction or rushing. When you meet another person, there is an invisible moment that decides everything that follows. It happens before words fully take shape, before questions are asked, before opinions are formed. In that brief space, either two minds remain separate or a bridge begins to form between them. Most people do not notice this moment because they are already inside their own thoughts, already preparing what to say next, already thinking about how they are being perceived. But when you become aware of this small window of time, you begin to understand something very powerful about human connection. To be fully present in that first encounter means to step out of your inner noise, even if only for a few breaths. It is not about forcing silence in the mind, but about not letting the mind control the meeting. When attention becomes steady, something soft happens. You begin to see the other person without the filter of judgment or expectation. You are no longer trying to categorize them or predict them. You are simply with them. In this state, even ordinary moments become meaningful. A simple greeting carries warmth. A nod carries respect. A short sentence feels complete because it is supported by full attention. This is why presence is so influential. It transforms the quality of even the smallest interaction. People can feel when they are being truly acknowledged, even if they cannot explain it in words. Most misunderstandings between people do not come from what is said, but from what is not felt. When someone speaks while the other is distracted, the words may be correct, but the connection is missing. It is like sending a message into an empty space. But when attention is fully given, even simple words carry depth. The listener becomes a mirror, reflecting back understanding instead of resistance. There is also something deeply disarming about being fully present. When you are not trying to dominate the conversation, the other person relaxes. When you are not trying to win, they stop defending. When you are not rushing, they stop feeling rushed. This creates a natural flow where trust begins to grow without effort. It is not something you build through strategy, but something that emerges when pressure is removed. This kind of presence also changes the way you feel inside. The constant need to evaluate yourself begins to fade. You are no longer asking, am I doing this right, or do they like me? Instead, you are simply experiencing the moment as it is. This brings a sense of lightness because the mind is no longer divided between action and self-judgment. Over time, this practice reshapes how you relate to others. Conversations become less about performance and more about understanding. You begin to notice that people open up more easily. Not because you are trying to extract information from them, but because you are offering them something rare, undivided attention. And in this simple shift, something surprising happens. You no longer need tricks or techniques to influence others. Your presence becomes enough. Not because you are trying to be powerful, but because you are finally not standing in the way of connection. Listen to understand, not to reply. Genuine listening creates emotional comfort and makes the other person feel valued and respected. When two people meet, there is often an unseen distance between them. It is not a physical distance, but a mental and emotional one. Each person carries their own thoughts, worries, memories, and expectations. As they speak, part of their mind remains in the past, part in the future, and only a small part is truly in the present moment. Because of this, many conversations happen on the surface level, even when the words seem meaningful. The real depth of connection is missed, not because people lack intelligence or kindness, but because attention is divided. To understand the power of presence, imagine what happens when that distance disappears, even briefly. When your attention becomes fully grounded in the moment, you are no longer splitting yourself. You are not rehearsing responses or analyzing impressions. Instead, you are simply there, aware of the person in front of you as they are, not as you assume them to be. This simple shift changes the entire quality of interaction. In this state, listening becomes something very different. It is no longer a task or a social skill. It becomes an act of respect. You begin to hear not only the words, but the tone, the hesitation, the emotion behind what is said. You notice when someone is confident in their speech and when they are uncertain. You sense when there is joy, even if it is not spoken directly, and when there is heaviness hidden behind polite phrases. This deeper level of awareness allows you to respond in a way that is more human and more accurate. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel understood. Not those who speak the most, but those who listen fully. When someone feels that their presence is truly received, they begin to relax. The need to defend themselves or perform starts to fade. In that space of ease, real communication becomes possible. It is not forced, it flows. This is why even a short moment of complete attention can have a strong effect. In the first few seconds of meeting someone, if you are fully present, you set the tone for everything that follows. The other person senses that they are not being ignored or rushed. They feel acknowledged. And this feeling often determines whether the interaction becomes meaningful or forgettable. At the same time, this practice transforms the one who listens. When you are fully present, your mind becomes less cluttered. You are not carrying the burden of constant self-evaluation. You are not thinking about how you appear from the outside. Instead, you are rooted in the experience itself. This brings a quiet clarity, a sense of being grounded in reality rather than in thought. Over time, this way of engaging with others changes how you move through life. Relationships become less about effort and more about understanding. You no longer feel the need to force connection because you begin to realize that connection is already possible when attention is given freely. In this simplicity lies a deeper truth. People do not need to be impressed to feel valued. They only need to be truly seen. And presence is the way in which seeing becomes real. Silent kindness builds trust instantly. A calm face, soft eyes, and a peaceful intention can make others feel safe and welcomed without many words. Most people move through their daily interactions without realizing how much of themselves they are not actually offering to the moment. They speak, listen, respond, and react, yet behind all of this activity, their attention is constantly divided. Part of the mind is replaying past conversations, part is anticipating future outcomes, and part is silently judging how things are going. Because of this fragmentation, the quality of human connection often becomes shallow, even when intentions are good. When presence is missing, communication becomes mechanical. Words are exchanged, but they do not fully land. A person may talk about their feelings, but if the listener is distracted, those feelings remain unreceived. A conversation may appear normal from the outside, yet something essential is lost within it. That missing element is not information, but awareness. Without awareness, even meaningful words lose their depth. But when presence enters an interaction, even in a small way, everything begins to shift. It does not require long speeches or special effort. It begins with simple attention that is not split. When you are fully with someone, you are no longer carrying the weight of internal commentary. You are not comparing, analyzing, or preparing. You are simply there, steady and open. In that state, communication becomes clearer, more natural, and more honest. This kind of attention has a quiet effect on others. People can sense when they are not being treated as background noise. They can feel when someone is truly listening without distraction. In such moments, they begin to express themselves more freely. They do not need to exaggerate or hide. They feel safe enough to be ordinary, and in that ordinariness, something real emerges. Trust begins to grow not because of effort, but because of clarity. Presence also changes the rhythm of conversation. Instead of rushing to fill silence, there is comfort in pauses. Instead of reacting quickly, there is space to understand. This space is important because it allows words to be received fully before a response is formed. In this way, communication becomes less about speed and more about depth. What is said matters less than how it is received. For the one practicing presence, there is also a deep internal change. The pressure to perform in social situations begins to lessen. There is less concern about being impressive, less fear of being misunderstood. The mind becomes quieter because it is no longer constantly evaluating itself from the outside. This creates a sense of ease that is not dependent on the reaction of others. Over time, this way of being begins to influence every relationship. People respond differently, not because you are trying to change them, but because the quality of your attention has changed. Interactions become smoother, misunderstandings decrease, and connection feels more natural. You start to notice that the simplest moments often carry the most depth when they are fully experienced. The end presence is not about doing more. It is about removing what gets in the way of truly meeting another person. And when that barrier is gone, even a brief encounter can become meaningful, because both people are finally sharing the same moment without division. Presence creates lasting impact more than conversation. People may forget what was said, but they always remember how they felt in your presence. There is a quiet truth about human connection that is often overlooked. People remember how they are treated far more than they remember what is said. Words may fade, details may blur, but the feeling someone experiences in your presence stays much longer. This feeling is created not by effort alone, but by the quality of attention you bring into the moment. When attention is scattered, connection weakens. When attention is complete, even a brief interaction can leave a lasting impression. Most individuals move through conversations while carrying invisible layers of distraction. They are thinking about how they are being perceived, what they should say next, or how they can steer the interaction in their favor. This constant internal activity prevents them from fully meeting the other person. As a result, even friendly exchanges can feel slightly empty, as if something essential is missing beneath the surface. But when a person chooses to be fully present, something subtle yet powerful changes. The need to control the interaction begins to fade. Instead of shaping the conversation, they begin to witness it. Instead of trying to impress, they begin to understand. This shift transforms the energy of the encounter. It becomes less like a performance and more like a shared experience. In true presence, listening becomes deeper. It is no longer about waiting for a chance to speak. It becomes a form of silent respect. You begin to notice the rhythm of the other person's speech, the emotions carried in their tone, and even the pauses between their words. These small details carry meaning that is often missed when attention is divided. And when someone feels that they are being understood at this level, they naturally open up more. This opening is not forced. It happens because the other person feels safe. There is no pressure to impress, no need to defend, and no sense of being evaluated. In such an environment, communication becomes more honest and relaxed. Even simple sentences carry weight because they are received with full attention. At the same time, the one who is present experiences a different kind of freedom. The mind is no longer entangled in constant self-monitoring. There is no ongoing question of, am I doing this right, or how am I being seen? Instead, there is a direct experience of the moment. This creates a sense of ease as the burden of self-consciousness slowly dissolves. Over time, this practice begins to reshape relationships in quiet ways. Conversations become more meaningful without becoming more complicated. Misunderstandings reduce because attention is clearer. Even silence becomes comfortable rather than awkward. The pressure to fill every gap with words disappears, replaced by a sense of natural flow. What makes this approach so powerful is its simplicity. It does not rely on techniques, manipulation, or effortful strategies. It relies only on awareness, steady, undivided awareness in the present moment. When this awareness is offered to another person, even briefly, it communicates something deeper than words ever could. In the end, presence is not about trying to win people over. It is about removing the distance that usually exists between two minds. And when that distance disappears, even for a few seconds, connection happens on its own.